Hello and welcome. Another Uposatha full moon day has passed, known here in Sri Lanka as Poya, where they primarily celebrate the full moon as opposed to the new moon or dark moon and the quarterly moons as are recognized in other places. Representing another month that has passed, the first month into this Vasa, the monsoon time, the rainy season. And although I thought the rain had perhaps come to an end, it hasn't. And that figures, as when I arrived at the end of the last Vasa, which I spent in India, and then came here, arriving the day after the full moon of October last year, it was still raining. So it does rain through this season here, as has been evident of late. A considerable amount of rain this last few days. And I thought the sun had gone away, it was about to rain, so this would be a good place to sit. And as is the unpredictability of things, that isn't the case. The sun has just come out, so I may go into a dark shadow. But that doesn't matter too much. This just shows us, as time advances, 1 month into this 3-month time, retreat time is often referred to, the Vasa, that time marches relentlessly on. As the Buddha said to his bhikkhus, "Bhikkhus, time marches relentlessly on. How well have you been spending your time?" And this is a question we can ask ourselves regularly on reflection. How well have we been spending our time? This doesn't mean we have to have been carrying out all kinds of altruistic, spectacular activities, but simply living life in accordance with the Noble Eightfold Path. That sounds like quite a boring thing, doesn't it? But it's also quite a challenging way to live when you break it down into its component steps, which are not steps, more links in a chain, as it's circular, beginning with right view, leading through right intention, speech, actions, livelihood, effort, mindfulness and samadhi, which is meditation, back to right view, coming from the Noble Eightfold Path, the Four Noble Truths, as taught by the Buddha, and central and the core teachings of Buddhism in general. And this is no more highlighted that people's quest outside of those teachings for pleasure, for gain, for fame, for fortune, for sensual stimulation is seemingly more visible now, but perhaps no greater than it has ever been through humanity, because in different forms, in different manners, in different ways, it is the human instinct to seek for gratification, for satisfaction, to release ourselves from the feeling, the perception of what we call suffering, in Buddhism, dukkha. And many people ask, well, how to become enlightened? What to do? If you title one of these videos, How to Become Enlightened, or How to Meditate, or How to Reach Jhana, it is more popular, would get more views, people watching the video from that title initially, than if you call it Moral Virtue, Meditation, Wisdom. Simply that. Because that is the answer, that is how to. But it doesn't attract, there isn't the hook to pull people in to actually do that. without such titles. Now I stumbled across by chance, loading this up, a very short video, someone arriving in Colombo, very basic but nice video, just shot on a phone or something like we're doing here, going to a cafe, getting in a tuk-tuk, going somewhere else, and that was it. And lots going on. A huge number of views and interest, of course, because travel, food, airports, going along the road in tuk-tuks, visiting cafes, buying things in shops is very appealing to us humans. Human nature draws us to attractive, new things. There are even videos about taking new things that arrive via various postal services out of boxes. I can't admit to having ever really watched one, but I have heard of this called unboxing, which attracts a number of people's interest and people watching. Now, if only so many people were interested in the Dharma, that is how to become free from that inclination to not only do such things, but to even get some form of gratification out of watching someone else doing such things. Even less satisfying when trying to what is ultimately the goal of trying to satisfy insatiable desires. When we can cut this off at the source, recognize desire, and see that that is the actual cause of suffering, then there is no need for such things. Oh, better let this little creature go somewhere safe. So, we have come to watch this video as far in as we have, in the hopes that we will become free from suffering. Is the ultimate goal, but maybe not yours as yet. Maybe just to learn about Buddhism out of interest, speculatively, to maybe learn about meditation, learn about how monks live. And all of that is what's shared here on this channel amongst these many videos. And the answers to many of your comments and questions are within probably each and every one of these talks. Because however complex your question, whether it be specific or speculative, whether you have an actual problem with your meditation that you wish to overcome, one of the 5 hindrances, or whether it's just an overall skepticism in the Dharma, in the teachings of the Buddha, the answers are all there, contained within the Noble Eightfold Path. So when we listen to that phrase of the Buddha, each and every uposatha, as it is often repeated by myself and by other monks, how well are we spending that time? That is the answer we're searching for within. We reflect upon how well we have spent the time between now and the last time we asked ourselves that question. Not to be going back in the past, that's already happened, mostly forgotten, and what's there in our memories can be unreliable. But we can have a sense whether we have been keeping the precepts, whether we have spent time meditating, and therefore developed some wholesome mind states, and therefore eradicated some of our unwholesome mind states. This is the goal. This is what that means. This is that question. Then we can make a determination for the next, let's say, until the next Uposatha, or the next Sunday, or the next day of the week, tomorrow, or even within the next few hours, a determination to keep the precepts, to practice some meditation in that time, and therefore develop wholesome mind states, eradicating unwholesome mind states. This is what the Buddha was getting at. Now, share that notion with as many people as you can. There's no better merit you can gain than sharing the Dharma. And if you wish to share it by means of pointing people in the direction of this channel, then please do. It gets it out there. I don't use social media, I don't use Facebook or any of these things. So I have little opportunity or inclination to get involved with those things, and therefore cannot share it with other than anyone other than yourselves watching here and now directly, whom come here by way of some good fortune, I'm not sure how. But you can share it, as you'll see. Most often some channels with very high numbers of viewings and things have been shared at the same time on social media and such places. So people have kindly suggested, and here comes the rain, I think, I might have to move, that we could get together and make a Zoom thing. People have even kindly recommended we could have some additional equipment to facilitate that, or even go to other locations. But it's not so much that. I'm a monk, and if I can't get all of my everything I own basically in my bowl, then I'm only using it temporarily. So as it stands, and as it's always been since I've been a monk, well, actually for a long time before that, if everything doesn't fit in my pindapat or my alms bowl, when it's time to move on to go somewhere else, it stays there. So it keeps me focused not to collect things, not to get additional items in addition to what I actually need, which are just my basic one set of robes, my bowl, and that's it. A belt, a razor. We're provided with food every day. We're provided with shelter and medicine. We don't store food overnight. We don't need fridges or places to store the food. We don't cook, so we don't need things that need cooking or things to cook with. Simply our bowl to go and collect our food to eat each day, once a day in the morning, is enough. And part of the answer to that question in how we've been living, how well have we been spending our time, yes, indeed, it is very good if monk has been sharing the Dharma to lots of people by means of ways that have been facilitated for that monk in that time, because of course it's very meritorious. And I do my bit to try and also share not so much detailed examinations, commentaries on the suttas, that's already being done, but just my experience of living this way with you and how you can apply that to your lives, living with jobs, with businesses, with families, with friends, and socializing in lay life, where you can still practice just as well, equally. There is that opportunity for meditation and also for doing good, for sharing the Dharma. So when you discover something, you can share it with others, but don't preach. We don't need to proselytize, become evangelical about it. People will ask you that question. Well, you seem very calm these days. You seem to be smiling and you're radiant. And they may ask you, how is that? And rather than saying, well, I watched this how-to look good video on YouTube, which at the end advertised and pointed you in the direction of a Botox clinic, you can say, well, I watched this boring old monk sitting in the forest somewhere down in the south of Sri Lanka in the pouring rain, all damp and itchy with mosquitoes, droning on about the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, and see how they respond. Probably not very positively, if you put it that way, but you can say, no, seriously, let go. Not in that cliche way of let go, but look at something different. Look at an alternative way of life. It isn't so far from you. You don't have to think, well, okay, but we can't go and live in the south of Sri Lanka in the pouring rain, itching with mosquitoes. We have responsibilities, we have things to do. And also, we enjoy our life as it is here. That's okay. But you can enjoy it more fully and appreciate it more when you see it more clearly for what it is and how it is, and you see what it is that you need, rather than just trying to satisfy what it is always that you want. Identifying the cause there of grasping, of thirst, of craving. Eradicating also in that process the cycle that forms, creating addictions and unnecessary effort and work, which we put a lot into to get things we really don't need. So people going away, traveling and visiting another country will bring with them, coming here, many suitcases and bags that have to go on the plane, go on the conveyor belt, and then be waited for at the other end, unpacked at the other end, of course packed before you left. A lot of effort, a lot of work involved in all of this, bringing all of these things and accoutrements in order that you can travel. You may have read many books and read many internet articles. But it's true to say, and I'm coming from a place of experience here, and I'm not a young, fit, healthy sports person. I'm not skilled in any intellectually in any special way with languages, but I got on a plane in my 40s and didn't take anything with me at all, except my passport and a little bit of money at that time. And I've been traveling around the world ever since. Well, Asia ever since. Never having to pack a bag or unpack a bag. Never having to worry about what to wear. Because even before I was a monk, I just had one outfit, maybe 2 t-shirts, so I could wash one, wear one. And I've had just as good a time. It's just as satisfying a time. In fact, I can say more so, because the end result has been now I live in this beautiful country with all-round fantastic weather. Even the rain is a pleasure. And live very simply, but I'm very content and very satisfied with this life. Now, this didn't come from ordering anything, and however beautifully it's boxed, unboxing it, squeaking it, smelling it, feeling it. It came from not doing that, from not having to put any effort into work to earn the money, to buy that, get the new car, buy the latest fashion, not even get the latest smartphones. These are the cheapest, most basic I could get for the job itself. They do the job well enough. And when they don't, I'm sure you'll tell me, and we can arrange to upgrade them a little, but only when it's necessary. At the moment it's not. You may tell me otherwise, but as far as other equipment is concerned, it doesn't need to get more complicated than this. This is good enough. Now I think that video I was referring to at the beginning there, that has so many views, is probably got 10 times the number of views that any of these videos get, and the channel itself probably has 10 times the number of subscribers. Now this channel started about 2 years ago, because I began it by mistake, because it was just I was having a bored moment in a rainy afternoon in South India 2 Vasas ago now, 2 monsoon seasons ago. So this will be the 3rd Vasa straddling it. I can't work it out, but you know what I mean. Anyway, I turned the phone on, recorded something, put it on YouTube. I think it was just the Kapia there who was making my lunch was liquidizing some fruit, and it got thousands of views, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. Well, I could always talk about some Dharma here, you know, and see how that goes. And I've been doing it for 2 years ever since. And there's quite a few subscribers, and these videos get quite a few viewings. But absolutely insignificant numbers by comparison to if I get on a train or a bus and go to Colombo and go and order myself a pizza and a kebab, and have some flashing lights going on around me in the background, and perhaps look at some handbags in a shop, then we'd be looking at millions and millions of views and subscribers. Now why is that? Because it's addressing the cause of suffering. And people would rather fuel the cause of suffering, and I'm not criticizing anyone for this, I'm just describing how we, because I was once guilty of this too, how we think we can avoid suffering by avoiding it, by distracting ourselves from it, by doing something else, by buying something. Isn't it lovely when we buy something, when we click and it's coming in the post, and then we wait and wait and wait, and then it arrives, and then it's taking it out of the box. Such a wonderful feeling. It can be even made into a video and shared with others. And by the numbers of people who watch those sort of things, it works that way. At least it's a cheaper way of doing it, I suppose. But you can buy the same item second hand without the box, and not the most recent model, but the year before, even from the manufacturers these days, with the same levels of guarantee. But the world, the commercial world, is driven by its goals towards growth to sell. And the way to sell is to exploit people's weakness. Not in a cruel way, because it's seemingly in a kind way. You're fulfilling their perceived needs, but really you're just giving them what they want. And there's no better way to sell anything than to just give someone what they want. So people ask me a comment. I was going to look at comments today, which is why I keep looking down there, but I haven't got around to it. I started talking, and that's the way it goes sometimes. But what is Nibbana, or what is enlightenment, is often what people want to know. Well, it's not that. It's not having that need anymore. It's recognizing that just trying to fulfill what you want by going and getting, rather than recognizing where that wanting that desire is coming from is the cause of suffering, as opposed to the way to be relieved from it. But when you identify that this craving, this thirst, we call tanha in the Pali word, so desire for what we want rather than what we need, we can look at it. And it doesn't mean we have to say, well, that means we never have a new thing again. We never eat nice food again. We never listen to the latest nice piece of music. No, it doesn't mean that. But when we know why we're doing that, and how it too will ultimately become unsatisfactory. That item you took out of that beautiful squeaky box that smelt so new, so good you could make a video of it, now, a year later, is out of date, is scratched, is not working properly. It probably is working properly, but you convince yourself it's not, because it's time to get a nice new shiny box. It's okay to get the nice new shiny box, as long as you put the old one to good use, give it to someone, as long as you know that it's only what you want, it's not what you need. And this is what the Buddha is asking us to reflect upon, as regularly as we can really, not just on the full moon, Uposita or Poya, but all of the time. Bhikkhus, how well are you spending your time? Now bhikkhu means homeless mendicant, beggar, wanderer, samana, as opposed to anything really complicated. It doesn't mean gloriously robed, intellectually educated, sitting in a high throne, empowered authority over the religion of Buddhism. No. Bhikkhu, which is what I am, a bhikkhu, they call it higher ordination. They don't actually call it that, they call it upasampada, but that's the higher ordination after your first stage of ordination, because it's when you finally relinquish everything in worldly life and take on the 227 Patimokkha training rules, which we reflect upon every Uposita, full moon and new moon, either with our Sangha in group, where they're recited by one monk, or alone, quietly, if we're living as I am in solitude. But I reflect on those and the precepts more and always during the course of all of my activities, using them not as rules, but as guidelines. And actually the tools that protect me from entering into places where I might be attracted by such delicious opportunities that may attract me, fueling that unwholesome desire. So although it doesn't say you cannot specifically go into bars and clubs and nightclubs, within the 8 precepts, just the 8 precepts that lay people can take on Uposita's days, and also when visiting and staying or living in temples or monasteries, those 8 precepts, the 7th precept is to refrain from entertainment. And that covers a whole range of things. It doesn't mean you can't read Dharma books, or even biographies of monks, or even where appropriate and where relevant, other kinds of books. Or maybe even, especially as lay people, you could watch certain documentaries that are relevant to, or in accordance with, right view, right intention, right speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness and meditation, the Noble Eightfold Path. Because there are many such other, even movies, which are of quite good value. I don't watch them myself. We don't tend to need to or want to. But there are wholesome forms of entertainment, as well as there are, of course, also unwholesome forms of entertainment. And the more you spend on the latter, unwholesome activities, the more you're fueling unwholesome states of mind. Whereas concentrating on wholesome activities, in fact, enhances the wholesome states of mind you have there. And this is really the development of wisdom. It's not learning something by rote from a book. It's establishing a wise mind, a mind that will naturally guard through the sense doors of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and also your thought process. It will guard you from unwholesome activities, unwholesome things, watching the wrong kind of movies, going to the wrong sort of places, or saying the wrong kinds of things. Naturally, this will become inbuilt, and this is the wisdom we're developing, as well as the understanding of anicca, of impermanence, that new boxed item in a year's time is no longer new and becomes the cause of dukkha, suffering. And all of this is out of our control. Anatta, anicca, dukkha, anatta. The characteristics of existence. And this is true wisdom, knowing those, understanding those, along with the Noble Eightfold Path, the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, and its practice. So how well have you been spending your time? Well, the way to measure this, to gauge this, is what are you drawn towards? What are you attracted towards doing? Is it meditation? Is it listening to Dharma talks? Or is it to the other kinds of entertainment that is available? If it's the latter, then it's perhaps because you've been exposed to the latter, rather than being able to wisely guard and steer yourself away from it in a different direction. This is the training. But when the Buddha is asking this question of bhikkhus, how well have you been spending your time? He's also giving the opportunity to lay practitioners to similarly do the same. Where you have just as much opportunity to use your time wisely. You have just as much as opportunity to practice meditation, maybe not for so long, but it isn't necessarily the quantity, the length of time that you meditate for, but the quality, the understanding of why you are doing it. How you can simply sit without any particular techniques, maybe employing the one and most useful technique as advised and used by the Buddha himself of just watching the breath, which you can do at all times, is something to be kept in mind continuously throughout all of your activities, as well as when sitting to practice formal meditation. Whether that's for 15 minutes, which you can do with me here in the morning every day. I mean, that's not it's meditation time I share with you, because we have a short time slot for that live content to encourage you, but not to meditate for 15 minutes, but to take time later on in the day or prior to that to meditate for much longer, at least 20 minutes, but 40 minutes, an hour, 2 hours even. You can do it. You just get up earlier, go to sleep later. You'll find more restorative benefits physically and mentally by that, sitting meditating whilst awake doing nothing, than laying asleep, restlessly dreaming, not sleeping so well, but feeling that you have longer hours sleeping. Your sleep will improve as a result of practicing meditation. Overall will improve as a result of living in accordance with the Noble Eightfold Path. But when people are asking what is enlightenment, how to get to Nibbana, what's it like, the Buddha is explaining it cannot be explained, but experienced by yourself. Because it cannot be compared to these worldly things. I cannot describe to you the colour yellow without comparison. I could say it's not red, but that's with comparison. I can say it's the colour of a lemon or a banana, but that's, actually they have red bananas here too, and green. But yellow in itself, without comparison, how can you describe? Nibbana is without comparison. Enlightenment is to know that. And this is the answer to those questions. But again, without magic potions, special sounds at a certain hertz pitch, magical chants, singing bowls and ringing bells, it's not an attractive answer to attract a lot of people's interest. It doesn't stimulate the eyes or the ears, the nose, the taste buds, or the imagination. If the answer to enlightenment and what is Nibbana is it's yellow, it cannot be described without comparison. It's like this, it's like that, but it isn't that, is it? In fact, Nibbana is nothing like anything we can compare it to in samsara. But once glimpsed, cannot be unknown or forgotten. In that sense, everlasting. But you cannot describe it to any other without comparison and with nothing to compare it to. Now, of course, there are books and books of what it isn't. You can say what it isn't. Of course, a banana isn't red, unless you're here in Sri Lanka. Let's say, and I can't say a lemon because they're green and all colours, but everything changes, all things are uncertain. So, what's the time? I was going to go through some comments, questions, talk about that, but as I've talked about something else, I'm not sure exactly what, I'll probably leave it there for now. And I was about to say, and I kind of went a bit off the track, how do we measure this? The results of these efforts, this practice that we're putting in place. Well, of course, this is where we look at our kilesas, our defilements, the roots at this, the cause of this suffering, the basis of desire, which are greed, hatred, delusion. Lobha, dosa, moha, in the Pali words. And greed, hatred and delusion, so wanting what you don't have and more of it, and hatred or aversion, so not wanting it or really not liking it, as is the situation as it stands, come about really as a result of delusion. Not ignorance entirely speaking, which is avijja, but moha, which is delusion, is like confusion. You have the information, but you don't know how to use it. When you know that this desire is coming from a sense of either greed, wanting something you haven't got, or hatred, not wanting something to be the way it is, then you'll understand why you have the question as to why it is that the answer that Nibbana is not comparable to anything in samsara is in itself an unsatisfactory answer which provokes much thought, much in-depth research, much agonizing debate, much argument across the board in all schools of Buddhism as to how to get there, what to do. because the answer in itself is simply too simple. And the unaccepting of its simplicity, because of our tendency towards complication, is what creates more suffering. Desire for an answer because you have aversion to the lack of an answer. But when you see it just for what it is, it's just that. It's without comparison. You can be content. Then you can relax. Your body can relax. Your mind can become calm. You'll eradicate doubt. You'll eradicate doubt in the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, because by practicing, you see for yourself the results. Which won't be undone. And that's how you measure the slow eradication of the defilements of greed, hatred and delusion, and see your path gradually moving towards enlightenment yourself. So on that note, I'll wish you much happiness, fulfillment, as you travel towards that goal, towards Nibbana. Be happy and stay well. Sukhi Hotu.